The elements. The periodic table of elements represents a massive achievement in scientific understanding. Contributions to the table have been made over the centuries and continues until this day. In this video series, I'm going to go through a brief background on how each of the elements got their names. Some of the stories are straightforward, some have a lot of twists and turns, and some elements even have more than one name. I'm going to go through the elements by their atomic order rather than their date of discovery. This means we'll be jumping back and forth in time quite a lot. My name is Rab, this is my channel, sources are linked in the bottom. Let's get started. Number 1, hydrogen. If we're going to talk about early modern chemistry, there's no better place to start than with Antoine Lavoisier. He is the French big boss in early modern chemistry. He died at the age of 50 by the guillotine because France was, going through some stuff. But keep him in mind because he's going to be popping up all over the table. Antoine didn't discover hydrogen. Henry Cavendish is usually credited with discovering it, but he called it inflammable air from the metals, which is objectively a terrible name. So Lavoisier got the naming rights, and as we'll see, the person who discovers the element isn't always the person who gets to name it. Anyway, Lavoisier named hydrogen for the Greek hydro, meaning water, and gen, meaning producing, because when you burn hydrogen, it produces water. Number 2, helium. So this guy, Jules Janssen, was a French astronomer who was a total eclipse freak. He traveled the world to view 7 eclipses. During the Franco-Prussian War, he escaped the siege of Paris via hot air balloon, in order to see another eclipse, of course. It was cloudy that day, so he didn't get to see the eclipse, but he did get to escape a war zone. And that's not nothing. While on a jaunty little eclipse outing in India, he got some strange readings from the sun through a spectroscope. He didn't realize that the readings had indicated a new element, so no discovery. Sorry, Jules. Sir Joseph Lockyer recognized that similar spectroscope readings he was getting could indicate a new element, but he wasn't sure. He and his buddy Edward Franklin had to talk about it. If it is a new element, what do you want to call it? Helium? Ooh, girl. Eventually the word did get out, and was confirmed as a new element. And because the first evidence came from the sun, helium is fitting. Helium comes from the Greek helio for the sun, and ium for that Latin ending of metals, because the initial assumption was that it was a metal. But it's not. You have to respect Lockyer, though, for not futzing around with the element name after the fact, because one person we'll talk about later didn't have that kind of resolve. Number 3, lithium. Johann August Afwertesen was studying the mineral petalite. He wasn't able to isolate lithium and petalite, but he was able to tell that there was about 10% of the petalite he couldn't identify. He named the unknown 10% lithion, but the name lithium was later popularized by William Thomas Brand, who was able to fully isolate the element. Litho comes from the Greek stone, and ium is that Latin ending for metals. Number 4, beryllium. This one was kind of a surprise for me. I didn't even know there was a mineral called beryl. Types of beryl have some heavy hitters like aquamarine and emeralds. Louis-Nicolas Vauquelin isolated beryllium from emerald and beryl. He declined to name it straight away, which, big mistake, right? You got to jump on this name stuff, or you're not going to get your name. He had to call it something, and in his writing, he started with Terre du Beryl, or Beryl Earth. His editors knew they'd have to call it something, so they came up with the name we all know, glucine. Why glucine? Well, some of the beryllium compounds are sweet to the taste. Eventually, that changed to glucinum. Gluco comes from glycus, and glycus is the Greek for sweet. German chemist Martin Klaproth had been experimenting with beryl and isolated beryllium and came up with the name berylina. I'm not sure why berylina. It does sound an awful lot like ballerina, unless it's pronounced berylina, and then it sounds like fudge. So this other dude, Heinrich Link, is like, we can't use glucine. It sounds too much like glycine, and that whole situation is untenable. So let's call it berylide or beryline. So 2 other guys working separately isolated beryllium, and their names were Friedrich Wohlher and Antoine. Oh, hold on. I'm just going to do a quick Google here. I'm going to do a very specific Google here.
Bussy.
Oh, okay. So Wohlher and
Bussy.
were like Beryllium. That's it. That's the name. And when people heard it, they were like, yeah, it's been solved. We've been working on it for so long. And people were cheering and coming out of bars and kissing and hugging and running through the streets. It finally been settled. The world had a name for this element, except for France, who called it glucinum for 160 years. Number 5, boron. So listen, let's just cut to the chase on this one. The element boron is named for the mineral borax. And borax was first mentioned in a book by Persian alchemist Razi in the 10th century. It probably comes from the word borak, meaning white. So there was this guy named Sir Humphrey Davy. Here's a drawing of him working on a lecture, it looks like. And there's this other guy. Okay. He was like a big old swinger in the chemistry world of his day. And so this mad lad, Sir Hump, was like, listen, I'm finding all these dang old elements. I'm going to find out what borax is made of. And Napoleon, here's a drawing of him in case you didn't know what he looked like. Oh, this one too, huh? He was like French and had the French accent. You know what he sounded like. And he said, no way, dog. This one is going to be a win for La France. And so he built this big old mega lab and put his 2 best guys on him. They were Louis-Jacques Thénard and Joseph-Louis Gay-Lussac. So Team Thénard Gay-Lussac did it. They discovered it. And of course, they named it Bore. So Sir Hump comes along a year later and is like, yep. This is a new element. We should call it boracium. Later, as it became more apparent that the element wasn't a metal, he decided to change the name to boron, so it could fit in with other non-metallic elements like silicon. And it wouldn't be the last time that Sir Davy would monkey around with the name. Number 6, carbon. Our old pal Lavoisier is on this one. He named it carbone to differentiate it from charbon, or the French word for charcoal. Charbon comes from the Latin carbo, which seems to have referred to both coal and charcoal. We just dropped the E to make it more uniform with the other elements like boron, I guess. Listen, I found something related in my research. I thought in the old days, pencils had lead, and at some point they just switched to graphite. But nah, it was graphite this whole time. People just thought that graphite was a kind of lead rather than it being a kind of carbon. One time when I was in 3rd or 4th grade, I was holding a pencil and I was rocking back and forth, and I rocked pretty far forward, and man, that sucker just jammed right into my shin, like right next to the bone, and the tip just popped off. And the kid sitting next to me matter-of-factly said,
"You're going to get lead poisoning."
And I broke out in a cold sweat, like worrying. Later, my teacher told me they don't even use lead in pencils anymore. It turns out that wasn't exactly true, but it helped calm me down. Anyway, there was like a little black dot on my shin for like a month, and either my body absorbed it, and now I have the combined strength of a grown man plus the tip of a pencil, or my leg was just like, and spat it out on the floor somewhere like a discarded chicken bone. Number 7, nitrogen. Nitrogen was discovered by Daniel Rutherford, who gave it the name we all know, mephitic air. Mephitic means noxious, which is strange because nitrogen doesn't have a smell. It could be that this refers to its ability to kill animals and extinguish flames. Lavoisier was thinking of that property when he named it azote, from the Greek azotikos, meaning no life. I'm guessing Lavoisier knew that it could kill from gassing bugs in a bell jar. It seemed to be a kink that all these early chemistry boys had. So this other chemist called Jean-Antoine Chaptal was like, listen, all these damn gases seem to kill animals in bell jars and put out flames. Why don't we give this thing a name based on something only it can do? Nitrogen was already known to form nitric compounds like sodium carbonate, which is called nitron in Greek. So he suggested nitrogen. Well, he was French, so he suggested nitrogen. Nitro for that nitron, and gen for forming. Of course, Chaptal won in this one, but the name azote lives on in some compounds that contain nitrogen, like hydrazine. Number 8, oxygen. In the late 18th century, a huge mystery was fire. What is it, and how does it work? In Europe, the prevailing theory had its roots in alchemy. It went something like this. Anything that could burn contained an essence called phlogiston. Setting a material on fire would use up its phlogiston, or dephlogisticated. What was left behind after burning it was the true essence of that material. Swedish chemist Carl Wilhelm Scheele, a phlogiston true believer, isolated oxygen and named it fire air. And what did he do with the newly discovered fire air? He jammed a mouse in a jar and filled it up with pure oxygen. The usual outcome of the jar mouse gas experiment ended up with a dead mouse. But this time, with oxygen, the mouse didn't die. It got all pumped up like a dude at an O2 bar in Vegas during a bachelor party. This encouraged Shield to take a hit himself, and he said, "I fancied that my breasts felt peculiarly light and easy for some time afterwards." At about the same time, inventor of carbonated water and British clergyman Joseph Priestley discovered oxygen as well. Priestley? A clergyman? That's some nominative predeterminism. He called his discovery dephlogisticated air. Lavoisier came along and was like, "No, we are going to call it oxygene." Later he switched it to oxygene, or oxygen if you're nasty, and an English speaker. Oxy comes from the Greek oxys, meaning bitter or sharp, and gen means producer. The sharp or bitter here refers to acids. Lavoisier believed that all acids were formed from oxygen when he created the name. Later, Sir Hump proved him wrong on that front, but by the time that happened, oxygen was firmly entrenched in the scientific literature. I'm sure that Sir Humphrey was itching to change that name. He liked doing that, and you'll see more of that in the next video. Beginning and ending with Lavoisier is the perfect bookend to part 1 of this series. Lavoisier made many scientific discoveries before being kissed by Lady Guillotine. He was instrumental in the rejection of phlogiston theory and proposed that the elements replace it. This marks the turning point where chemistry shed its alchemical roots and started on the path to the modern scientific discipline we know today. As I mentioned before, the elements were not discovered in the order of their atomic weight. In the next part, we will cover an element that you probably associate with the 1950s, one that has 2 genders, and one that, if you don't know the origin of, let's just say, you're in for a surprise. Lastly, I just want to mention that I'm just making these videos as a goof. I'm a freelance motion designer. If you like what I do here, you can hire me. Link right below. If you don't want to miss out on the next part, hit that subscribe button. See you in the next one.